Hello everyone, my name is Kedehan Dianyana. Well, today I'll to explain about our panel project. So the title is Language Expression when Serving the Guests in the Abbey Service in Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali. So the first chapter is Introduction. The first is Background of Study. Communication is the process of expression idea, meaning, and information between sender and the receiver through the verbal and non-verbal. Language is the one of way to communicate with others. In the modern area, people should be able to use foreign language to communicate with others, especially for the people who work in the hotel. Language function and language expression, which are used by waiters, then to be in more formal language expression is communicating with the guests in the hotel. For example, expression of greeting the guests. Waiter not use informal language such as "Hi, what's up?" but the waiter must use the formal language like "Good morning, sir or madam. Welcome to the NP restaurant. How may I assist you?" And the next is statement of the problem. The first one is what the language function are used by waiters in the Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali when doing conversation with the tourists at the hotel. And the number two is what the language expression are used by waiters in the Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali when doing conversation with the tourists at the hotel. Next is purpose of study. To identify the language function are used by waiters in the Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali when doing conversation with the tourists in the hotel. And number two is to identify the language expression used are by waiters in the Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali who are doing conversation with the tourists in the hotel. Next is significance of the study. For the student will know the language function and the language expression used by waiters in the Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali when doing conversation with the tourists. The research also increased the vocabulary of the student. For the further research, this research will be useful for the further research who want to raise some topic about language function and the language expression because it can be used as a reference. Next is scope of study. The research focus on the identifying of the language function and language expression are used by waiters to handling guests in the Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali. In the research, the waiters saw more implies to language function and the language expression are used by waiters Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali. And next is the definition of key terms. Number one is language function. Language function is language used in a certain occasion and the has function like greeting, offering help, asking and taking lap and so on. And number two is language expression. Language expression is language which used by person to communicate with other person or only to show what does he or she feel at the moment. Definition of waiters. Food and beverage service is a section where the waiter or waitress has served to the guests in the restaurant. The operation include prepare the dishes, accompanying the guests at the table, controlling the availability of the dishes, and every controlling which food and beverage. And next move to chapter number 2 is review or relate the literature. So the first is definition of language function. Language function is language used in a certain occasion and the has function like greeting, offering help, asking, taking a leave, and so on. Language function and language expression are significant except which be needed by the speakers when they are communicating with others. Now, according to Finfek Alexander, 1978, in the city of Giri, there are 6 kinds of language function, namely, number 1, importing and seeking function information such as identifying reporting, correcting, and asking. Number 2 is expressing and finding out international attitude, like accepting the offering to do something. And next, number 3 is expression and finding out emotion attitude, like expression of pleasure and displeasure. And next is expressing and finding out moral attitude, like apologize, greeting forgiveness. And next is getting things done, like offering assistance, suggest course of action. And next is socializing. For example, is expression of greeting people, expression of meeting people. Based on the explanation above, the writer can conclude the language function is language which is used by a person for doing communication with other, depend on the situation, formal or informal. Next, for the definition of language expression. Language expression can be divided to be two words that are language and expression. Language is one way how we can communicate with other people. Besides, the language also used in unified tool in the community, and the language is the human always do interact with each other every day, and language has important roles in doing interaction. According to buku panduan bahasa Inggris untuk SMK genap, semester genap, there are examples of language expression. The first is expression of feeling or opinion, such as I hope the opinion. And next is expression of giving invitation. For example is, would you like to? What about? Why don't we? And next is expression of receiving invitation. For example, I'd like to. I would. Thank you. Next is expression of refusing invitation, such as I love to, but I wish I could, but sorry I can't, but thanks anyway. For next is definition of waiters. Food and beverage service in the section where the waiter or waitress has served to the guests in the restaurant. To operation including preparation the dishes, accompanying the guests to the table, controlling the availability of the dishes, and every concerning with the food and beverage. There are several duties and language expression used by waiters, such as welcoming guests, escorting guests to the table, explaining the menu, report order, offering help, checking guest satisfaction, room service, asking for sign, and farewell. Next is chapter 3. This is the research method. Number 1 is research design. The study aims to describe language function and the language expression used by waiters in the Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali. We are doing conversation with the guests. Next is subject of study. The subject of study were waiters in a Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali. There are 5 waiters in Holiday Inn Bali. All of waiters in the Holiday Baruna Bali. They are staff at the hotel who already have good competence in their field. Next is research instrument. Questionnaire. In this case, the right use questionnaire for the making affection time to find the answer for the waiters in the Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali. Besides that, questionnaire also make the waiters easy to get data from the waiter. Next is data collection. In the collecting the data from the waiters, the right give questionnaire to the 5 waiters in the Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali. The waiters make an appointment to the 5 waiter in the Holiday Resort in Baruna Bali. And then the waiter discuss discussion about the time with the waiters. Also, that the waiters ask about the responsibility of the waiters, and then the waiters give questioner defend the responsibility with the expression of greeting a guest arrival, escorting the guest to the table, explaining the menu, repeating order, offering help, checking guest satisfaction, room service, asking for sign, and farewell. And for the data analysis, the steps of data analysis are following. Number 1, identify the language function used by waiters in Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali. Number 2 is identify the language expression used by waiters in Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali. And number 3 is put them in the table. Now move to the chapter number 4 is finding and discussion. Finding. In the finding, the writer show the language function and the language expression used by waiters in Holiday Resort Baruna Bali, such as greeting guests, escorting guests to the table, explaining the menu, repeat order, offering help, checking guest satisfaction, room service, asking for the sign, and farewell. Now I'm going to show you for example the language function and the language expression when the waiters in Holiday Inn doing conversation with the guests. Number 1 is welcoming guests. The language expression are good morning or good afternoon, welcome to our restaurant, may I have you, good morning or good afternoon, sir or madam, welcome to our restaurant, can I help you? And next is number 2 is escorting guests to the table. The language expression are would you like where do you want to stay? Would you like where do you want to stay, sir? Number 2 is escorting guests to the table. The language expression is would you like to want to sit, sir? And we have smoking and non-smoking area. Let me escort you to your table. Number 3 is explaining the menu. The language expression is here our food menu and drink list. Our special of the day is may I know your kind of food do you prepare? And next is repeat order. The language expression are let me repeat your order. Please wait a moment. Your food will be ready around 20 minutes. And next, number 5 is offering help. The language expression is are can I help you? Do you need help? Is there anything I can help you? Next, number 4 is checking guest satisfaction. The language expression are excuse me, how is your meal? And there anything that you need? Number 7 is room service. The language expression are excuse me, my name is Gede. I'm delivering your order. May I enter your room? Where do you like to put your order? Number 8 is asking for sign. The language expression are would you like to sign here, sir? Please sign here. Number 9 is farewell. The language expression are have a good day, enjoy your stay, see you around, thank you for coming to our restaurant. Discussion. From the findings that above, the discussion of the study about the language function and the language expression used by waiters in the Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali, based on what has been discovered, scientific observation are rendering the waiters at the hotel in the good language and the good manner. Besides, each hotel has a different standard than any other. Every waiter should have the ability to talk to guests. With such as explain as above, we can conclude the English language is very important when doing conversation in the restaurant. Next is chapter 5, is a conclusion and suggestion. The conclusion is, from the finding and the discussion in the previous chapter, the writer should conclude the language function and the language expression cannot stay alone. They need to support each other when doing conversation. There were 9 language functions used in the writers in the Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali, namely welcoming guests, escorting guests to the table, explaining the menu, reporting order, offering help, checking guest satisfaction, room service, asking for sign, farewell, and the language expression used by writers to communicate with the guests define the language function used. And for the suggestion is, the researcher hope the further research who want to raise some topic about the language function and the language expression used, the writers can take the data from 5-star hotel and can compare the difference of language function and the language expression used. The writers in Holiday Inn Resort Baruna Bali, and the research also hope that the further research use more instrument to take the data from the subject of the make more accurate, because this research only use one instrument. And that's all about our presentation. I hope you enjoy and get the point from our presentation. Thank you.